So this is today's program. Just in terms of housekeeping announcements, we will start with a presentation, and we will follow with answers to the questions that those of you have submitted in advance. Of course, there were so many questions. We tried to look for common threads, so we will be addressing the most common questions that we heard. But later, as time permits, we will also open the floor for more questions, which you are welcome to place in the chat. As a reminder, although several of you submitted specific employment authorization questions, this is really not the focus, nor frankly the specific expertise of the participants in this program. We can speak for personal experience, but for the most current information and for any specific questions concerning work authorization, please contact the International Center, the University of Michigan International Center, and you have the link there. Without any further ado, I'm going to leave the floor to the speakers, and welcome.
Thank you very much, Mariella. Again, hi everyone at the University of Michigan. It's our honor to be here. Today we're going to talk about truth, myth, and some of the lessons. First of all, my name is Niandong Wang, and we have another wonderful guest, Serena Wang. If you speak Chinese, you know we're not the same last name, but the spelling is the same. Now, first of all, who am I? Who's Niandong? If you can see my LinkedIn profile, which I will encourage you to click on the link or write on the link, get connected with me. Also my email address as well. So my background has been, I've been working in the US for almost 20 years now. Before that, I worked in China as well. Originally, I came from China. Right now, I'm a senior exec in Silicon Valley. And also today, I will be really focused on speaking mostly from a hiring manager perspective. And also my professional background has been working in internet companies, fintech companies, and then my role has been general manager, sales, BD, and product management. And my academic background, I went to an engineering school in China for my undergrad, and also went to Berkeley for my MBA. So that's kind of my background in a nutshell. Now, I'm gonna first show my first story because that's probably more relevant when I was a first year MBA student at Berkeley. Again, I was an international student, so came from Shanghai, moved to Silicon Valley, and I was very excited and interested in becoming an investment banker after business school. So I did what I could do, basically is networking, both in the US, and also I flew to Hong Kong to meet with some of friends or connections, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, all the investment banking firms that I can talk to. Now, I did what I could, but because my background before business school was mostly in technology company, I worked for IBM for 6 years, for example. And also, if you remember at that time that there was a dot-com burst in early of the century. So a lot of people actually were out of a job, especially on Wall Street. So even though I did have a really good goal, I did not really prepare myself well. I did not spend enough time to really understand what is the investment banking industry was like. And even though I have some networking, but I was late. I was doing the networking at the end of my first year, which is too late anyway for the recruiting season. So that was my really first lesson learned, if you will, in the US to find employment, internship, or full-time jobs. There are many things that I will share with you momentarily, but this is the really things that I want to hammer to the ground. Now, this is not exactly a second story, but I put it in the story is, and after I graduated from Berkeley in 2004, Right now, it's almost 17 years already. So I've been hiring employees. I've been building the teams at Microsoft, PayPal, VMware, and also startups. At times, I also have to let people go. So I would say, the hiring part is always exciting, and I will share more about, what the common mistakes international students made. But the firing or let go people was not really always happy for either one of us, for employers or for the employees. But this is something that I think that I know today we're talking about seeking employment. You might not really think about the opposite side of let go. But the thing that I want to share is you need to think the full spectrum. You need to think about how can you get hired, but you also need to think longer how you can stay at the job. So I summarize because we talked to Marilla and Marilla asked me to really provide a few tips, if you will. First of all, I would say own your career. What does that mean? What does own my career mean? Means you need to take initiative. You are on the driver's seat. Nobody else, not your parents, nor the career counselor at the career center, or your friends, or your boss in the future. Nobody else own your future. You own your career. You need to really focus on this, and you need to know who you are, what you like. Second thing is you need to have a plan. And I'm going to answer some of the questions in the end because there was a question, or Serena was going to answer the question too, about the timeline. I would say, and this is something that also came on to me really lately, but actually your career searching plan start at day one when you start your study at University of Michigan. Why would I say that? It's because it's not something like, okay, now I just finished my midterm, now I've just finished my finals, let me try to find a job. No, that's too late. You need to have a study plan from day one. You need to have a career plan from day one too. This is not something that you can do that linearly. You need to do that parallelly. The third thing is build connections. I will talk a little bit more about this in the next slide. But when I say build connections, again, it doesn't mean because you're looking for a job, so you're looking for people to talk to you. That's too late, and that's too transactional. Relationships, connections are supposed to be organic, long-term, and substantial. Fourth is execute relentlessly. What did I mean by that? If any one of you had or have any sports athletes background, you will know this. You cannot just exercise today or do some drill today and then let go or relax for a month if you want to prepare for any serious games. So this is the same thing. For career, a lot of people think that, especially international students, many of them say, well, I'm going to focus on my GPA. I'm going to get the 4.0 GPA so I can get into any companies, Google, Facebook, or whatnot. No, that's not the case. Okay. Career, searching, growth is this particular skill set. You need to really exercise this every single day, just like you are practicing your coding or programming or whatever skills you have. Last but not least, for this slide, I would say, get a good coach. Now, I want to emphasize one thing is, I know University of Michigan has very wonderful career counselors. Marilla is one of them. When I say coaches, doesn't necessarily mean just the career counselors. That means people in the industry. That could be from your alumni network. That could be from, someone just coming over as a speaker, for example, me or Serena. The difference is you need to find people who are willing and are also able to help you. And also, this is not just one-time thing. The reason why we say coach versus mentor is maybe you have a mentor at work, or you have a PhD thesis advisor. You can probably meet him or her once a year, once every other time. A coach is like an athlete's coach. you work with the coach from the start to the beginning, from the beginning to the end. So, and also everyone needs a coach. I have my own coach, even though I'm pretty senior. I have my own private coach, coach me from time to time. Now, I said in the very beginning, I will be talking, speaking from a hiring manager perspective. What are the common mistakes especially for international students seeking employment? And I was one of them, remember that. So I made some of the mistake as well. First of all is the many times that, especially during interviews or networkings or parties, the international students will say, oh, I'm sorry for my English, or things like that. Never apologize for your accent, for your origin, not because you don't have that problem or you might need to work on it. If you really have a strong accent, you can take some accent reduction lessons. You can practice that. But the point I'm being is you need to show and project your confidence, your experiences. Now, apologizing your accent is not a good way to start any conversation. Second of all, I saw many questions that submitted asking about H-1B, OPT, CPT. Again, I am not immigration a lawyer, and I'm not really authorized, and I'm not really experienced enough to answer other questions. But when you think of any employments in the very beginning, if all you can think of is the H-1B sponsorship, green card thing, you are actually in the wrong direction. You need to think about, for this particular position, what are my skill sets? How am I going to be comparing to other candidates first? And you need to articulate that well. And so that employers will be like, okay, this candidate really is fantastic, exceptional. And oh, by the way, he or she needs to get H-1B sponsorship. Guess what? We have that. They don't think of your H-1B sponsorship first, then look at your skill set. We always look at your skill sets comparing to everybody, regardless of your nationalities. So remember that part, okay? The third thing is sometimes is I saw many times, this is not just international students, but international students probably more than less, is you haven't done the homework about any employers specifically, and you just apply because you feel like, hey, maybe I can, by applying to many more companies, I will increase your odds. No, that will not. You need to be very focused. You need to do deep research about companies you're applying, and that shows. If you do that, I can tell in the very first interview. Sometimes I would just ask some questions. Like, for example, if I work at PayPal or VMware, a public company, or Google, and I can just very easily tell if you have done research or not by asking you, what's the stock price of my company today or our company today? Or if you say, well, I don't know, but I would ask you, can you guess? Do you know what's the market cap? If you have nothing, you have know nothing about it, and you talk about, oh, I love Google, I love Facebook, I love VMware, you're not serious, And a lot of people, I would say, if they're getting to the final round or get a job offer, is because they have done this before. Sounds easy, right? But many people don't do that. And not networking for jobs, like I said, when you're doing networking, and like I said, I welcome every single one of you. Reach out to me on LinkedIn, reach out to me by email. But I hope that you reach out to me not because you look at my job title, look at my past background, say, Nian Dong, I want to get a job at VMware or Microsoft or PayPal. Yes, I will help you, but hey, I need to know who you are first. If you are genuinely interested in building up relation with me, I will help you. If you're only looking for me as a job referral, I'm not sure if I will help you. Let's put it this way. And also close-minded. This is actually 5 and 6 are together. Is basically when we are coming from our foreign country, as an international student to study in the US, there are many things we don't understand. There are many things that we might have some opinions, which is totally legitimate and normal. But don't close your mind to be very judgmental about US cultures. And here I want to specifically talk about, I don't know how many of you are Chinese students, but I noticed that there are a lot of Chinese students immerse themselves on WeChat. and which is I use WeChat as well. So don't get me wrong, but if most of your information, most of your connections, most of your perspectives are coming from WeChat or from the WeChat articles, which is a social media app for those people who don't know about WeChat, then you're not living in the US. You're not really understanding US, and your perspective will be biased. That's not really helpful for you if you want to stay here in the US for a job or for internships. So I'm gonna pass this to Serena by having a quick summary, if you will. Is a goal without a plan is just a wish. I know that you sign up this event because you want to know how to get an internship in the US, or maybe even eventually find a job in the US. And as someone who has been here for 20 years, I would tell you, you need to have a plan. You need to also execute it. And I would welcome you to contact me, and we will leave our contacts in the end, so you can contact me as well. So Serena, thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm super happy to be here and then talking to you. I'm just gonna give you guys like a very quick self intro, just to give you the flavor of who you're talking to today. So unlike Nando, I'm very early on in my career, so very nascent in my career phase. I graduated from college 3 years ago, and have internship experience in banking in Asia, and then I transitioned to a startup experience in Silicon Valley. I'm coming here to talk to you today because I think I'm closer to the student group, and I share a lot of like common questions. I share a lot of like common mistakes that you guys could be making today or tomorrow. So I'm definitely just want to try to come in here, share my experience, and hopefully help you navigate the career search a little bit. If you go to the next slide, I want to deep dive on two of the experience I have. One is definitely the junior summer internship experience, which for most of the college students is the most important internship experience because that oftentimes lead to a full-time job. So I wanted to talk about that experience a little bit. So when I was an undergrad student, there is a very prestigious club at the University of Chicago, and that club basically selects like 30-40 people every single year, and then they will train these people to be, investment banking ready. So I was like not really knowing what that industry really is on a day-to-day basis. I'm really trying to get into like a bulge bracket because I think a lot of the alumni is going and all the smart people going there, and then this club on campus is very selective. So obviously I rushed for the club, and then I got in, and then basically trained since my second year to get an IBD job. My experience that summer cannot be entirely bad. I actually worked on a lot of very high profile M&A deals. One of them is like the historical highest number of like deal structuring and then the deal close amount for Singapore sovereign fund. But what I also found that summer is when investment banking is, from my perspective, they are very like rigid. They're very standardized, and they basically have for every single detail, they have a very specific discipline and rule, and then you cannot break the rule book. And then I can see myself, if I as a lot of alumni would tell me, just join investment banking for 2 years or 3 and then jump to a private equity or hedge fund. I don't really see myself working there for just 2 more years, because I feel like that summer experience to me, I was not a culture fit. And then when I go back to school my senior year, I'm trying really hard to find where my career actually is. So should I stay in the financial services, maybe trying something more business focused like consulting, or should I just go into a tech company? And at that time, networking and school alum definitely helps me a lot in navigating that decision. So I talked to a lot of people. Before, I only talked to people that are in banking industry because I really just trying to get a job there. But then I started talking to basically a lot of different school alumni. They're not even working in a very high profile company, and then start talking to them about their job, their life. And then I find out like I'm actually very interested in helping a tech company grow. And Silicon Valley back in 3 years ago was still growing like crazy. So I just kind of moved there and then started my career. Looking back, I would say I would do a lot of like variety networking ahead of time instead of like only focusing on banking. If you go into the next slide, I can also talk a little bit of my 3 years of experience at Lime, which is a micromobility startup company. So for international students to land a job at startup, I think there are many things that's going on. One is you're looking for a startup that's growing. So especially when you guys have a lot of questions, I see it like on visa, H1B. So I would say like you definitely want to look for a startup company that's at a growth stage at the time that you want to join. They will most likely have open accounts for undergraduate students. They will most likely sponsor your work visa. And then, but the way to land a job at startup is not just because they're growing. You need to know the business because startup is a very small world. So it's very flat. When I joined the company, there's only like 200 people. And then every additional headcount need to do a lot of work for the company. You're driving values. I would say that's the amount of like ownership and project management that I really didn't get to experience in banking. And there's like a super steep learning curve. I think looking back on my 3 years, there's definitely pros and cons. Pros are like, it's a one of a kind Silicon Valley experience. Fresh out of like college, I actually got to apply a lot of things I learned at school, like economics, like market dynamics in my job. That's something that I think a lot of people warned me against. They were like your degree and your education is not very linked to your job, which is not necessarily true when you're working at a startup company and trying to use all you know to help this company move forward. But there are cons too. I think one of the cons is like the mental stress of the startup life. It's very real. The company can survive or die in the next quarter, and there are so many moving factors. And I think fresh out of college, that kind of mental stress I was not very much prepared for. It's not like I'm getting a B+ on my essay. It's more like this company that I work for could die in a quarter. So that's a very different kind of mental strength and psychological strength. And then of course, if you're looking for a very standard or a very comprehensive training, then a startup might not be the place to go because the expectation is you need to be working at a very professional and like high functional level the first day that you join. And a lot of people go to a startup not with a mentality that I want to coach young people or mentor the young professionals. A lot of people go to a startup because they're betting on this company to succeed. They wanted to experience like a bigger ownership or like so on and so forth. So a lot of people don't join startup because they wanted to train on their mentorship to young professionals. So when you join the startup, you need to already functioning at all levels. Looking back, I would say I will do a lot more assessment, maybe talking to more startups or more tech firms around the area. I also made that decision in a rush, I would say. So looking back, I think more preparation is always better. And if you go to the next slide, I have a few key learnings. So like some of them I think Nian already covered, but I just want to say like one is be involved and as proactive as you can on campus. One thing like I think right now that I think back on that I felt like helping a lot is my sorority group. It's not a common, I think like for international students, it's very not that common to join the Greek life on campus. And I was not like the visible or popular girl in my sorority group, but hanging out with these people really showed me a very like cultural rich and native side of the American culture and really helped me to navigate my conversation a lot better when I start networking in my interviews or right now hanging out with my colleagues. Mariella, if you go to the previous slide.
Sorry, let me go back to the slide.
Oh, that's okay. So I would encourage you to hang with different group of people. You don't need to like dish all your like Chinese or Indian friend if you coming from those background. You don't need to, but hang with different group of people because you will need to work with them in the future. A lot of corporate are very international and very diverse. And second thing I would say, like internship is definitely a great way to find your passion and dislikes. I would say explore different kinds of industries, different kinds of companies, different roles in the companies, and different locations. These are very like important. So I was like very kind of single-minded on investment banking. And then when I find out like I do not like the role or do not like the work, it was a little bit too late, I would say. For a lot of people, junior summer internship is super important. So like I would definitely do things very differently now that I have my current experience. And then I would say location is also actually very important. Like it's like job is not like another course you take at college. Job is like your everyday, like what kind of city you live in, who you hang out with, right? So location is also very important. Like I didn't think about this too much. I was trying to get a very interesting title on my resume, but then like now like I just very much thankful that I'm living in the Silicon Valley, hanging out with very smart people. And then I would say the third point is networking is the secret pathway to best opportunities. I would say like if you get a referral, especially in tech companies, if you get a referral versus if you just co-applying, the chances are very different. And tech companies are not that much like investment banking or consulting. They are not typically looking for a super high GPA or a background in financial services, in accounting or economics. They're looking for people that can do the work, they know the company, or like already have some like sponsor or mentor in the company that can help them grow. And then I also want to say like a lot of times when I was in my first and second year in college, when I look on LinkedIn, I only get connected with Asians. So I'm looking for people with like an Asian last name because I know I will get higher chance of getting connected because I know who they sort of are, and then I can like crack that conversation more easily. But that's a mistake too. You should connect with everyone that you find interesting and you want to learn from. Do not pre-select for yourself like the group of opportunity that can be presented to you. And then yes, authentic networking is real. Sometimes it feels like if I want to get a referral, if I want to get a job, the conversation becomes a little bit like manipulative. That's not true. That's just a mental game. If you really like a company, really like a position, and then you bring the kind of preparation to it because you want to make this conversation meaningful and purposeful, that doesn't make it less authentic than it is. So do preparation work, be interested in this person that you're talking to, and then networking can actually be a fun game. And then similarly, find a coach. I think when I'm in college, I always look up to people that are a year or two that are senior than I am. I never hang with people that are 5 or 10 years older than I am. But when I go to a tech company, these are my colleagues. So they're talking about their family. They're talking about their like last 10 years of experience in Silicon Valley. And I don't know how to get connected because like all this time I'm hanging out with my peers. So I would say you want a coach and you actually want to expose yourself to people that are a lot senior and maybe in a different life stage than you are. So then you know the path you're on, and then consistent coaching will actually set you apart when you grow in your career. And then that sort of conclude my part of the presentation, and we can start addressing some of the common questions we see in the thread, and then also accept some of the live Q&As. I can take this because I think on this slide, so we look into the question that you guys submitted, and on this slide, I think they're more relevant because you guys are talking about internship and then job roles for international students. So I can speak like one-to-one on the bullet point. So one is, could you provide a job seeking timeline for typical international undergrad students? Like Nian covered a little bit in the beginning. Career, like if you are very serious about your career is things that you start planning on day one. Of course, if you're no longer like a freshman, don't freak out, right? Day one doesn't mean like day one as a freshman. Day one means like the moment that you become serious about your career, you should start doing something about it. So I would say common job seeking timeline is in the beginning of the quarter or the semester, when you guys are not so super busy with the academics, start to reach out and network with a lot of people. And then usually a few months in, there's also a huge opportunity open up for internship opportunities. Usually in October, they start like basically viewing your applications, talking to you. And then in March, April, they already close out basically all the final headcount usually. Because like usually an internship starts in early June, ends in early August. So you definitely wanted to wrap up a lot of conversations in April. If you're still ongoing, like don't freak out, right? But that's like the common timeline. And I would say from year to year, freshman year is really about exploration. You want to do maybe a variety of things. Maybe it could be like a least high profile company, but it's interesting title, you get to explore a lot. So that's more like for freshman year. Second year, I would say you want to be closer to the trajectory you want to get into. So I was interning at a venture capital firm before I went into my JP Morgan M&A internship experience. And when I was interviewing with JP Morgan, they value my venture capital experience a lot because they are in a very similar industry. So I would say in your second year, you either network crazy and apply for the job you really want to get into, or at least get into an internship experience that are very close with the track. And then I would say junior year summer internship is very, very important. It usually leads to a full-time job. And then last year, but I would say like if you're a senior student, don't stop networking with people just because you already have full-time offer. It's never too late to like switch your career or negotiate for something that's better. And then I think that's kind of like also answer the second question. So networking application, it should be consistent. It's not like I stopped because I have one full-time job secured, right? So you want to always negotiate for better, always explore more. And then when can I start applying for internship? I came to US as an international student in the month of August. So I don't know the exact answer to that, but I would say like whenever you see interesting internship opportunities pop up, you should apply. And whenever you see a person whose like career path you're very interested in, you should like reach out. You don't need to hold back and be like, I like this person, but I'll reach out in January. You don't need to do that. Like reach out now. So like, and then there are chances that you guys are connected and you get to your dream internship offer sooner than you imagined. And then specific interview question that international students are commonly asked. I would say there are different rounds of internship interviews. For a recruiter, they never really ask things that are specifically targeting at international students and try to like set them in a very separate pool. Like usually a lot of the interview questions are very standard and very similar to all people that are being interviewed, so that they can review the application on a very equal basis. It's more important how you visualize yourself to stand out instead of thinking about like what kind of question will be targeting at me specifically. So I would say be prepared, but one question I think in particular, be prepared to talk about your unique background, what value add, what fresh perspective that you can bring. Usually when you're not from this country, people know less about who you are. So it's in your own responsibility to show who you really are, what you can bring, what kind of strengths you have to the people that are interviewing you, because they know less about you and you need to close that conversation gap because you want the job. And then that kind of the same kind of mentality cover the following few questions. What types of jobs are easier to attain for international students? Like, I think unless you're already in your senior year and you are on this kind of dilemma on leaving the country or getting a job that sponsors a visa, if you're earlier than that, I would definitely encourage you to think about what are your passion career? What's your passion job, instead of like, what's job are easier? What kind of job that I can get? No matter who you are and no matter like what age you're in, you should always think as if you're the chooser, right? So you should think about what kind of job I like and how can I get that job, instead of like what kind of job will hire me. But that being said, I think talking to more people, looking for the kind of specific requirement they listed out for the roles, just to see whether you are a culture fit. That's also important. Is product management more difficult for international students than for US citizens? Great question. Because when I was a college student, I do see there's some of the product management programs, like some of the rotational ones, and then a few, I believe at Visa, they do not sponsor like work visa for international students. So when they listed things out like that, maybe it's not a job for you to try. But that's more like a company specific policy than like an industry-wide common practice. So I wouldn't say, like, I definitely have friends who break into product management at LinkedIn, at Google as their third year internship, and then got a full-time job right after. So it's not like it's more difficult. But as I said, product management is very heavily focused on product knowledge, but also a communication, because they need to talk to not just engineers, but every other division in the company. And then usually international students, if you feel that you are less good at English, or you don't think you can get this role, you become less convincing and less communicative in your interview, then it will position you in a worse position. So you wanted to be very vocal and then do a lot of work. So then I don't think like, because you're an international student, you cannot get a PM job. And then tackle being a field where a large number of openings dependent on being a US citizen. So that's commonality, right? Because we're in US, and then of course a lot of the openings are open to like US citizen. But as I said, as a company, they wanted to hire people who can do the job, who can grow as a company, who can bring value to the company. As a company that's running on profit, they need to make money at the end of the day. So if you can prove that you know the business, you can help the business, there's no way that they hire someone that doesn't know how to do it instead of you, right? So it's more about what you can do instead of like what kind of visa you're on. And then I think that's very similar for the last question. Like, econ was not identified as a STEM until I graduate. So I don't think a non-STEM degree necessarily hurt your career chances unless you're applying for like, an engineering or data scientist position.
Great. And just, I know that we have a few questions that have come through the chat or the Q&A, but out of respect to the people who submitted question in advance, Mian-Dong, I would like for you to address those, the ones that came first.
Sure. Thank you, Serena, for sharing. I'm going to be very quickly look at the questions from a live audience. I would say, first question, sponsorship, you can still apply. I think, especially for internship, there's no requirement for the OPT or CPT thing. Just go straight to apply. Second question, do I need authorization to do volunteer work? Again, check with your international center. That would be the best way to do it. How do we do homework about employers? Again, there are two ways. Public companies check their financial statement, earning call transcript. Private companies, of course, are a little bit different. But in any case, there are many ways that you need to do it. It's just like you are studying about a stock, if I can use a stock trading as an example. You can do the things from information, the public, you can do that from on YouTube channel. But in any case, show the respect and do the work. Last question, both of you mentioned finding a coach. How can we find a coach? I think this is a great question, very great question. Maybe we can talk offline, get connected with me. But in any case, sometimes you need to be very proactive, reach out to people. It might not be turning into a long-term relationship, but more often than not, if you have a chemistry, if you have the mutual sharing common knowledge and stuff like that, that could be one of your coaches. Again, when I say finding a coach, not just one, it could be a portfolio of different people. The next question is, you said people, this is a question for Serena. Serena, you want to answer the question or should I take the question?
Sorry, which question you were?
The question from Darren
Yeah.
about things.
That people said you major. Maybe I said it too quickly. So my current job, which is in strategy and operation team at Lime, is related to my major of economics at my college. What I said is people commonly say that what you learn at college cannot be fully leveraged in your job because they're not always related, which is not always true if you really look in the right place. And then startups sometimes give
Serena, thank you. We should be short and sweet. Okay, thank you. So the next three questions: how do we approach people in my industry and connect with them? Again, there are many things we can you can do, and one thing you can learn is how to do networking on LinkedIn. Again, this could be a long topic. We can come back for another one, but basically show yourself, show your respect, and then also understand what the other side is. What should we include when they're working on LinkedIn? It's similar to the question I just said. You need to have a good LinkedIn presence, and you need to really know what who you are and why you want to get into a certain industry or with another person. The next one, I'm currently seeking full-time jobs, accounting. Am I supposed to? Yeah, I think so. That you can apply all the jobs that fit you, and don't always think about sponsorship in the very beginning because you never know. So don't even worry about that. Just apply. I'm an econ major too. What job roles can we apply? I think this is a great question. You can talk to Mariella or your school's counselor. This is a very good question. Can we get a recording of this session? I think Mariella already said we could, right? So all the questions answered. Now, Mariella, can I go back to the slide?
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you. Oh, great question. I guess I'm not going to read every single question, but I categorize the questions in value propositions for international students and how COVID-19 has changed. Now, I know you might have, and as Serena said, you might think that the employers will look at us, our international students, differently. And yes and no. That's not what I'm called myth and truth. One is yes, when you talk about your experience, your past experience in, say, China, India, Japan, South Korea, yes, most likely employers know that you are probably international students. Now, in the US, employers are not supposed to really discriminate anyone based on your nationality or region, religious, all the things like that. That's something you need to know. So if someone specifically is asking any question like that is actually not professional and unethical. So, but having said that, how do you present yourself to an employer? Is like I couldn't emphasize this more than enough. Is you really need to tell people. For example, if you are studying econ or computer science or whatnot, how good are you? Not like how good are you as a Chinese student? How good are you as a computer science major, as econ major, as a business major, as civil engineer major? You can tell people, hey, I have done this project in the lab, or I've done this and that. Just speak that with full confidence. Okay, you don't need to think about I'm a Chinese, I'm Korean, I'm a whatever the ethnicity. that's not something you need to think about. Having said that, you can offer that if the job is related to, global, for example, global program management, global business development. You can say, I do speak 3 languages or 4 languages or 2 languages. I am a native speaker of, Farsi, or Arabic, and I'm also fluent in English. That will help because that's always a plus. All right. Will culture difference influence the employment? No. I would say very rarely any employer, any hiring managers would dare to really say, oh, I don't feel comfortable about your culture. That person, if that's a hiring manager, will get fired, honestly. So nobody would really show anything like that. On the other hand, you also should be really not emphasizing too much of your cultural differences, unless it's a job related to the culture. If you are applying for a technical job, show your technical skills. If you're applying for a business job, show your business skills, right? But don't just using your cultural differences to really try to influence or change the thing. That would not work here in the US. How COVID-19 has changed the workplace hiring? I would say, again, I'm not going to answer any question related to visa part, but I would say here is just a logistic part. You can work anywhere remotely in the US. That's typical hiring situation right now. But if you are in, say, Asia and you want to apply for a job in the US, first of all, let's put the visa parameter aside. Think about the cross time zone differences, right? You're not going to be able to sustain longer for that. So I would just say, has made that COVID has been very, to some extent, I think it's helpful to release the location requirements. Like you don't have to move from Michigan to Silicon Valley if you get a job here, as long as they're flexible. But on the other hand, that could also make the competition fierce, right? Because all of a sudden, the recruiters doesn't have to travel to, for example, University of Michigan campus to do the job fair. They can just hire from anywhere. They can host one seminar, and all the schools can apply. So you really need to think about how you can stand out from the competition. So with that, I think we'd like to offer a big thank you for University. We're not done yet. So if you have any more questions, we can look at the Q&A. We can keep answering questions. But I will encourage you again to really think about what we've been talking about today, and then really start leveraging and some of the skills. Now, I said I would welcome all the emails and connections, but I will also tell you, to be very frank, if you all your email just say, Niendo, this is who I am, blah, blah, blah. Do some research about me and Serena on LinkedIn, and tell me something about you that make you more interesting. This is a mini exercises when you do networking and when you are trying to get help. So don't just assuming that, because we offer the things here, you will get equally, treated by any other people. Because today I see there's in the very beginning I saw there are 279 University of Michigan students registered for this seminar. Guess if I receive 200 emails from all of you, who I would respond first, right? Think about that.
If I may just say a couple of words, I noticed some common threads in some of your questions, especially when it came to where can I find a coach and how can I do networking? And so, especially for those of you who may be new to Michigan, I would like to remind you that when it comes to career services, we are very decentralized here at U of M. I happen to be in the University Career Center that, technically serves students across all schools and colleges. But at the core, we are generalists, okay? We are not specialists. However, several of the schools and colleges, engineering, kinesiology, School of Information, business, have their own career services. And I would encourage you to tap all those resources and also the counselors, the coaches in those units, because their contacts may be more germane to the career fields that you are pursuing. And also graduate students, which I know make a huge portion of our audience today, can avail themselves to, the Career Services Office offered by Rackham. And actually, there is a person in particular, let me put her name here in the chat, my colleague Kirsten Elling, who shares an appointment between our office and Rackham. So for all those of you who are graduate students, she would be a marvelous contact for you. As a matter of fact, there is a program coming up in October that will focus on how do you network. In regard to that question, while we can definitely coach you individually on how to approach a networking relationship, as a general wisdom, I would like to stress how people are very busy, especially when I was thinking, how can I find a mentor or a coach? If the first thing that you do in approaching an individual is, are you willing to be my coach? It would be almost equivalent if on a first date, you would say, do you want to marry me, right? You don't go there on that last stop. You maybe start with an informational interview when people only have to commit maybe 15 minutes so that they can learn more about you, you can learn more about them and the role, and maybe there's a follow-up, you exchange a few articles, and then when you see that there's some chemistry, you can more actively pursue that coaching relationship. But usually, at least in my experience, coaching is not the first thing that you bring to the table as you send out your feelers to see who's more responsive, especially because, again, given how busy people are, they may be more receptive to a short-term investment, answering to an email, agreeing to a 15-minute informational interview, than committing to an ongoing relationship. I'll stop here. I don't want to steal time here maybe just one more thing. And don't forget that in addition to, LinkedIn, you have access to one of the largest alumni association. So University of Michigan students and the alumni are all over. So that's always the first place to look. So the LinkedIn University of Michigan alumni group is a great place to start. And also for those of you who are not familiar, I will put the link in the chat, the University Career, advising network that can, because it's so much smaller, usually students have a better luck hearing back from individuals. Okay, 4 minutes to go. I'm going to be quiet. Any more questions for Serena and Actually, thank you for placing the last chat, the last slide on. That's another QR code. All our programming is dictated by your feedback. If you would like to see more sessions like this, please answer this really brief survey. The more we hear from you, the more we'll know on how to proceed on the kind of programming that you like.
Yeah.
And in case you have trouble with the survey, I will put the link in the chat as well.
So Marilla, can I say a few parting words?
Absolutely.
So again, if you remember, I mentioned I graduated from Berkeley at 2004. So 17 years later, I'm here speaking to University of Michigan, which is not my alma mater. But the reason why I'm doing this is because I'm volunteering to give back to the community, to give back to not just my school, but any school might need help. I would encourage you, all the listeners, regardless whether you're international students or not, to really think about this and pay it forward. I hope you when you graduate from the University of Michigan this year or next year, maybe 17 years later, you will be speaking to other schools, helping other international students. And that's the reason why Serena, who is also not a University of Michigan grad from Chicago, she's also doing this because I want to help people because I was being helped when I was an international student, if that makes sense to everyone. Serena, you want to say a few words before we conclude the session?
I just want to say thank you everyone for having me. This is definitely very fresh. I graduated 3 years ago, and I really hope that, because I actually share a lot of the like the pain that you guys are in right now. So definitely very exciting to be talking to you guys, and hopefully this helps. And then I think like when you are at my stage in the future, hopefully you can also come back and talk to the campus.
Great.
Beautiful. We are at time. Please let me thank our speakers today.
All right.
We heard a lot of good tips. I appreciate your sharing your wisdom with us, and we hope to invite you back. Guys, be sure to complete that survey so that I have good data to invite Nian Dong and Serena back. You have my vote for sure.
Thank you, everyone. And this is a Friday, so happy Friday. Have a nice weekend. Hopefully we'll be coming back soon or whenever we are available. And really appreciate one more time to really thank you to Marella to organize this for a lot of, we've been working on this for a long time. So I really want to give her a big shout out. Thank you so much, Marella.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Serena, too. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thanks.